Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby and I'm bringing you something a little different today. This is the FV304. This is the Tier 6 British artillery, and I'm going to be doing a full tank review on this highly mobile, highly accurate and rather unique Tier 6 British artillery. Now if you're looking for an incredibly fast and pretty darn mobile artillery that is highly accurate but doesn't really pack high alpha damage, then look no further, this is the tank for you. In this review, I'm going to highlight all of the tank stats, then I'm going to show you some gameplay so you can have a well-rounded opinion on the tank. So without further ado, here we go. Now this tank has 280 hit points, which isn't as much as the previous tank, the Bishop, the Tier 5 British artillery. This tank is a little heavier than the Bishop, weighing in at 21 tons, but that doesn't mean that you should be trying to ram any tanks unless they're, for example, an ELC AMX. Equally, if you do see one of these FV304s bombing it around, if you can try and get in between him and the path that he's trying to take, then he's likely to wreck himself on your tank. Now the main difference between this tank and the Bishop is the fact that this has an amazing engine. It's got a 500 brake horsepower engine, and its top speed limit is 72.4 kilometers an hour. That is simply ridiculous. Now the traverse speed on this tank is not incredible. If it was, then this thing would just be insane. Its traverse speed it's still a rather good 24 degrees a second, but considering the engine power and the top speed limit, the 24 degrees a second traverse speed really prevents insane maneuverability of this tank. I don't expect to be bouncing anything in this tank because it's only got 25 millimeters of armor all round. Now the gun that this tank uses is the same as on the Bishop. It's 114 millimeter, which fires 5 rounds a minute, with 57 millimeters of penetration, 450 alpha damage, 0.7 accuracy, and a very low 4.5 seconds aim time. Now comparing it to the gun mounted on the previous tank, the Bishop, we can see that the rate of fire is increased by roughly 10%. The accuracy is slightly better, but the aim time is the same. So if you're expecting to have a much better gun than the Bishop did, then you're going to be very underwhelmed. Basically, the FV304 is the same as the Tier 5 British artillery, except for it forgoes its rather heavy armor and high hit points to have a lot of mobility. Now, this increased mobility removes a lot of the frustration that a lot of Bishop drivers will have, and that's the fact that the gun arc in the Bishop is so short that it can barely fire 500 meters away from the tank. Considering that a lot of the maps in World of Tanks are 1,000 meters long, that means to reach the corners of the map, you're going to have to basically be in the middle of it, and this can put you in harm's way. And considering how slow and immobile the Bishop was, the FV304 kind of overcomes this disadvantage of the short range of the tank. However, the fact that the FV304 can now meet Tier 8 enemies means that their armor has become significantly better as well. And the fact that this tank cannot use any premium shells mean that there's no real way to compensate for the lack of alpha damage and lack of penetration this tank does have. Now, if you need to do scouting for yourself in this tank, it does have 310 meters view range, which means that you can see the enemies at a fair distance, but it's a lot less than many of the open top artillery that will have the standard 400 meters view range. However, the fact that this is closed top means that it can use a gun rammer and ventilations, as well as the enhanced gun laying drive. This means this tank can fire very quickly, and then the extra 5% crew skill can come in rather handy. So I've shown you more or less all you need to know about this tank. Really, you're only going to be able to gauge the characteristics of its howitzer in the field. So let's take a look at how it performs in some gameplay.
Let's go.
So here we go, we're playing on Muravanka in our FV304. We're playing with icon jingles. Although, when you're playing artillery, it's not really the best kind of platoon synergy tank, in my opinion. And I guess sometimes you can provide them some fire support, but at these low tiers, not so much. So anyway, you can immediately see the FV304 racing into position. Now, one of the mods that I have has this black ring that you can see around the minimap. This is quite handy with the FV304, because this is roughly the distance that you can fire. As you can see here, this is the end of the gun arc. You can see just how accurate the gun becomes. It's undoubtedly one of the most accurate artillery, and I'm pre-aiming for where I think the enemy will appear. There we can see right at the end. I'm just going to pause the video here. That is the maximum range of the FV304. Just so you guys can see. Now remember, we're playing on Muravanka, which is an 800-meter map, 800-meter square. And this means that roughly it is about the 500 meters range that you can see there. So I'm going to unpause it. I quickly went ahead. I'm checking to see which bushes I'm going to go into before I stop with a little bit of cover. And I'm going to aim at the enemy. Now, because of the high gun arc, you can see the travel time is very long. So we hit the guy there, taking his track off and doing 67 damage to him. I'm zooming in and looking for the engine deck. Now remember, because of the gun arc, the fact that the shell goes so high and comes down at such a high angle, you can actually aim for engine decks such as this. And that's the kind of result. If you can hit a very weakly armored tank with the FV304, that is what I would call hitting a home run in this tank. Not every shot is going to penetrate, but when they do, goddamn, the enemy are in trouble. This is just a perfect situation for this tank. I'm aiming at stationary targets. I'm firing at very long ranges, which means the shell's going to come in really at a steep angle to hit on top of their flat armor, and we wreck them. So let's just take a quick look at where that hit. That hit exactly there. It landed flat down on the top of his tank and wrecked him for 426 damage. So that's 2 penetrating shots in a row. That's rather lucky. We're firing again. Oh, and there you can see just how long the travel time is with these shells at this kind of range. What this means is that you have to definitely get a feeling for this tank. Now what you're seeing me here do is zoom in there. I'm holding my right mouse button. I'm looking in other places and I fire. Boom. Okay, now just to say what I did there, okay guys. It's hard for me to re-show you. I can go into the sniper mode. So what I did is I found the enemy tank. I held down my right mouse button, which keeps your cursor here. Imagine it's like this. So I'm holding down my right mouse button then. Then I can go wherever I want on the rest of the map. It keeps my tank aiming at where I was aiming just before I held my right mouse button. So I can look wherever else I want. I knew that this guy was stationary. I knew that I hit him and I heard the track come off. So I aim at this guy, I hold down my right mouse button, and then that allows me to look at other things on the battlefield. Because I knew I'm only going to fire 1 shot more at that gentleman before he dies. And he did, taking him out the game. So here we're aiming at that KV-1. We're going to reverse between our shots because we want to be firing from behind the bush and not in the bush. If we fire in a bush, remember, he can see me. But if we fire behind the bush, there's very little chance for him to see us. So we've done some significant damage. I mean, this is a very nice matchup for this tank. There's only tier 6 enemy tanks. But, oh my word, we've been hitting our shots over and over again and decimating the enemy. And now this is just the ultimate opportunity for the FV304. A lightly armored tank destroyer. Yes, please. Stay still. See if I can see where the shell is just quickly. Where's our shell? Maybe I can put it into very slow travel time for you guys so you can see. Maybe we'll see the shell come in and hit his tank. So we can see there, well, there's actually the shell, but it's already killed him, so there must be some lag. There's the shell, that's ridiculous. So it hit basically about here. Wrecked his tank. We one hit that tier 5 tank destroyer. And I'm very nearly already reloaded. That's quite scary, guys. That's very scary for this tank. Here we're aiming at the VK. Oh, unlucky. And the other artillery takes him out. So I hope you're starting to get an idea of what the FV304 is like. If it can hit weakly armored targets, it can decimate them. And look how fast it is. Sorry, this is in real time here. I'm driving at 50 kilometers an hour before I hit that fence. Back up to 40 kilometers an hour. Now we're going to stop in this bush and aim into the forest. Too long. Shot went too long, unfortunately. So this is one of the frustrating things about this tank. In these kind of situations, the shell travel time is so long that when you're trying to finish off enemies at the end, they always seem to die before you can fire your shell at them. See, we can see the T1 Heavy was able to clip that guy just before we managed to. The only way to make it so that your shell travel time is less is to go forwards into position, as we see me doing here. Aiming for the Hellcat. Actually going to aim for the grill. Or grille. Good night, Mr. Grille. Okay, he's not very well. Hellcat gets taken out by Jingles. And we can smell our scumbag Top Gun. Where is it? Where's it hiding? Where's that SU-8? Oh, there's the VK. Let's aim for him. We're going to fire clutch, I think. I should have fired clutch there. Oh well. Now we're aiming back for the artillery. There he is. Shells away. Headshot. 270 damage on the SU-8. So let's just take a quick look at some post-game stats. So that was our Class 1 badge in the FV304. We finished 3rd on experience, and as you can see, the Ike and Jingles finished on top of me, even though we were able to do double Jingles' damage and an extra 3rd onto Ike's damage. And that's generally because artillery aren't spotting for themselves, and so they're sharing experience with other tanks. Also, I didn't get the assistance damage like Ike and Jingles did, only getting 172. However, that doesn't mean that you can't get lucky in the FV304. Don't think that the FV304 can't get assistance damage because, for example, if it hits tracks and takes the tracks off the enemy tank, and then your team do a lot of damage to that tank, then there's still an opportunity for you. So we fired 16 shots, we hit 11, and of those 11, all of the damage penetrated, giving us just over 2,000 damage done in a tier 6 game. The ammunition in this tank is fairly cheap, which means that we only spent 4,000 on ammunition, giving us a 33,000 credit profit. So guys, I'm sandwiching in some extra gameplay into the video because I just had an excellent replay in this tank, and I also forgot to really showcase one of the main aspects of the FV304, and that's its capabilities in close quarters combat. Because of its speed and its maneuverability, it's able to outmaneuver quite a few surprising tanks, as you're likely to see in this part of the gameplay. Sorry that this video is going to end up being very long, especially that I am playing a scumbag, but here we go. So again, we're going to take advantage of the fact that some of the enemies have got very low armor. And we cripple that Panzer IV for basically all of his health. We can see that we're right on the end of our range here. And that means that the marker goes a little funny.
Enemy armor is destroyed.
We managed to hit the Panzer IV irrelevant. Right, what we're looking for here is just nice, easy shots across here. You see I'm having to reverse up, so I've got the target. And this is where you want to be. Having the backs of tanks in the FV304 is fantastic.
That was close.
Now you see me firing a bit clutch there. So having the back of this Panzer IV is just a fantastic opportunity. Let's see what we can do to it. Oh, that's really got to hurt. 415 damage into the back of that tier 6 tank. Lovely. See if we can hit him again.
They're knocked out.
That rate of fire when you're able to penetrate is simply insane.
Critical hit.
Right onto the back of the T1. T1 Heavy? I was going to say T110. I'm really not used to playing these low tier tanks. Just catch him. No escape for you, Mr. T1 Heavy. So that really showcased us taking out a Panzer IV with a penetration, then taking out that Panzer IVS with a penetration, and then clearing up that T1 Heavy. Really, I'm just showcasing just how brutal this gun is if you're able to hit the targets consistently. And now we can see an interesting situation with this 88. Now this is a very heavily armored target. I'm trying to look for why I can't reverse anymore, and derp, there's some tank traps there. Alright, we see the enemy artillery. It's an encounter, so I'm not too worried about trying to interrupt the base at the moment. Oh, that's a Hellcat. That's a very lovely target for the FV4. The FV304. But we're going to try and hunt down this Sturmpanzer. We fire clutch. I do like to fire clutch in this tank, as you're going to see later on in the gameplay. Hey, we hit the Sturmpanzer there. Tracking him and putting him down to a very low amount of health. And thanks to our fantastic rate of fire, we can fire again before he can repair his tracks.
Gotcha.
Alright, so wow, here we go. An 88 just above us. Fortunately for us, he's on half health. This situation is looking rather good for our team. We've got 2 tanks more than the enemy team. It's looking rather good. I reverse because I'm not sure where the 88's going to go. But then I see I'm unable to hit the M41. The Hellcat is trying to get around the back of the M41. And the M41 TD modes, the Hellcat. Wow, this game just evened up. Oh god, we're 1 tank down now. We just lost 3 tanks in quick succession due to a skillful bit of play by the enemy artillery and a great hit by that 88. Alright, so I have a heavy tank in front of me. I'm just trying to get this 88 out the game. And that KV-1 hopefully will soak up a few of the shells. I'm going to try and position myself over here so I can get more flanking shots on the 88 or shoot into the town. Ah, there we go. We see the 88. I see if I have a shot. I just about have a shot on the back of his tracks, as you can see there. We fire and miss. But I feel that now it's time to go TD mode. And this is what you can do in the 304, as I'm going to show you quite successfully. So here we go. It's an 88 with 344 health left. Chewing on that KV-1. He's very busy, so I've decided to go for the flank. We position ourselves behind him and put 1 into him, doing 158 damage. Then I'm going to wedge up behind him, try and confuse him a little, allow myself to reload, pull back, slap another 1 into him, and then proceed to outmaneuver him. And wow, this is where the FV304 is quite hilarious, guys. When you're able to outmaneuver enemy tanks. If I was him, that would be the most frustrating thing, I think, in World of Tanks. I would... Oh my god. Oh, thank goodness the M41 missed us there. But oh my word, that rage that I would have if I was getting outmaneuvered and owned by a tiny little artillery running around the battlefield. But this is what the FV304 is capable of. We can see that the M6 is definitely going off hunting. In my last known location. I don't want to get caught by him. So I'm going to make a move over the ridge and go for the M41. I'm trying to use these trees as some cover. And there he is. We're going for a joust. We fire 1 clutch in and then we turn our tank. He's obviously very surprised at how maneuverable we are, and we've completely around him now. Just waiting for our reload. Put a big shot into him and track him. And now this is where it's satisfying. He repairs his track, but we go in for the execution. Nothing he can do. And that's where the FV304 can simply outmaneuver its opponents. What a fantastic little game for this tank. And I got to showcase really what I wanted to show. That was the fact that this tank can outmaneuver some opponents, especially enemy artillery and slow-moving tanks, like the 88 that we saw me take out effectively there. I'm not going to show the post-game stats for this Top Gun. This was just a bit of extra footage that I really wanted to highlight the capabilities of the FV304 in close-quarter combat when it's able to outmaneuver tanks that do not have turrets. So let's take a look at the final gameplay for my FV304 here in a Tier 8 game.
Let's go.
So here we go, we're playing on Malinovka. You can see that I've spawned all the way south. That can be quite annoying for the FV304. Other artillery might like to be down there because they're long range, they can stay safe. However, the FV304 needs to be within 500 meters of the enemy. And as you can see on the long-range map here, it can be quite restrictive. So, what I've decided to do is put my top speed and excellent engine power to use, and look how quickly we're able to relocate. It's simply incredible. This thing is ridiculously fast, and we've managed to put ourselves into a position where we're going to be able to assist our team. So there's the extent of the range of the 304. Now we're going to try and hit some targets. So 72 damage there, because we hit his frontal armor. We're looking for our next shot. Oh, he just stopped, and you can see again the length of the travel time. Now you saw me aiming at the Hellcat there. I'm aiming at the Hellcat because it's an open-top tank with very weak armor, and that is the perfect opportunity for an FV304. If you can try and shoot those weakly armored tanks, you're going to eradicate them very quickly, and a Hellcat is a very dangerous target. Try and find those lightly armored, very high value targets. Maybe not in this game, maybe the Hellcat isn't so high value in this game. But if you're, for example, in a tier 6 game and the enemy have got a Hellcat and you can take him out in an FV304, which you're very capable of doing, that's a brilliant result. So here we see me aiming at the side armor. Boom! Okay, let's take a quick look at where that one went in. So again, it landed on top of the tank there. Penetrated him for 531 damage. A huge shot against a tier 7 medium tank. He doesn't look too happy anymore, so he's pulling back. Now I'm going to aim at where the T-150 was last spotted.
Critical hit.
The T-150 has got a lot better armor than that VK302. Oh, so close. It's really hard to judge with the travel time. There's quite a lot of RNG in hitting tanks if they're not stationary like this. So okay, a Tiger II, quite a heavily armored target. We hit him for 118, even though we hit his side armor flush. Now that's the downside of this tank. If you can't penetrate them, sometimes you'll struggle. I'm completely at the end of my range there, but we managed to hit the Black Prince's track for 131. So I advanced my position a little bit so I can have a better gun arc, so I can aim down on his engine deck, as you can see here. I fire flush. Bullseye. You guys saw that one? That is where you want to be with the FV304. And this shows you just how accurate this tank can be. 452 damage for landing right on the top of the Black Prince, going through his paper-thin top armor, and probably also wrecking a few of his modules inside. What a result against that tier 7 heavy. He's not so happy. He's starting to pull back. Actually, he's kind of going, oh, well, you know, it's my time anyway. We're aiming again. Unfortunately, what happened there is he pulled slightly further forwards, and I think actually we hit his track, taking his track off, not hitting his engine deck. So we're going to aim for his engine deck again, trying to hit that home run. Here we can see the excellent rate of fire of this tank. Oh, just hit the rear of his track there. Still no more glory for his engine deck. We're going to aim for it again. And look at the rate of fire of this tank. It's simply incredible. Wow, 231. This guy's not so happy now. We've done 1,124 damage to this guy with our 5 shots. We're going to continue the onslaught. He's really got to think that I've got it in for him, and I do feel quite sorry for this gentleman. If I was in the Black Prince, I would be quite angry by now. Good night, sweetheart. So we had to hit that guy 7 times to do all of his health, 1,450 damage on the Black Prince there. Now we're going to start shooting at the Tiger II. Now one thing that you see me do in this tank is I like to fire clutch quite a lot. I literally will fire one and then I'll start to aim. That's because the reload on this tank is barely any longer than the aiming time. So what I do is I fire clutch and then I'll continue to aim at the target. Now what you see me do here is a bit of a mistake looking back at the game. I'm trying to hit the guy's track and we only do 14 damage to him. So I start to relocate, but what I do is I turn far too quickly and start to aim at him again. You still see me relocating a little bit. What I should have done is relocated far more further up north so I could be having a lot more flush shots on this tank. And that's because you're going to see what happens when the FV304 hits these kind of hard armored targets. Previously, you got to see me shooting quite squishy tier 7 medium and heavy tanks, taking advantage of their weak points. You just saw me fire a few shots at an IS-3 there, and I was only able to do 14 damage to him. Now we're going to hopefully hit this Panzer. We hit him flush. Now, one thing you must learn is that if you see your shell disappear, and I've just paused the game for a second here, if you see your shell disappear like that one did and you see no splash, that means that you've hit the guy. What you need to do then is think, okay, it's quite likely that I've tracked him with my FV304, and you should fire a second shell. You should nearly always fire a second shell. We can see that the second shell didn't hit the target. Okay, time to aim at someone else. Now we're aiming at the frontal armor of this IS-3. And also, just as the shell's in the air, I'm going to also highlight something. Because now, if I zoom out a lot, because we're a hell of a lot closer to this target than our max range, the angle which our shell is going to travel as it hits the target is going to be a lot flatter. Now, what this means is that it's going to not go in and land on his tank. It's going to drift in and hit the frontal armor of this guy. That means that you can't aim for his engine deck. You can't aim for the soft parts of the top of his tank, really. And what that means is that we hit him and we do no damage. We did absolutely no damage to that IS-3 with that shell. And now you're starting to see the limitations of the FV304. That one hits the church. Gonna aim for him again. That one hits him but doesn't kill him even though he's on 4%. I'm gonna aim for him again because we did hit him flush. And that one hits the church. So now what you're seeing is the limitation of the Iceball. The fact that the gun is so low caliber, and the fact that the howitzer's gun arc means that it's only really super effective at long ranges. I mean, we hit that guy twice there, and he's still on 4%. It really shows you guys just that the gun is not suitable for trying to engage these heavily armored tanks. So we fired clutch there and we hit the guy. We're going to aim again. That one hit the church again. Jeez Louise. Now we're aiming for that Panzer that we hit earlier. Oh, yes, hit him again. Oh my word, only doing about 80 damage to the guy. Hopefully going to hit this Panzer, but you can see that's the limit of the range. I'm not even going to fire there. And that can be another one of the annoying things you've got to look out for. If you're trying to use the optimal gun arc of this tank, that means that quite often it's you risk the enemy leaving your gun arc and leaving you unable to shoot them. So we're finally able to dig out that IS-3, who was going down really hard, such as the armor on the IS-3, really. An absolute beast of a tank, very heavily armored, and not something that you want to be shooting at in an FV304 unless you get to lob one onto his engine deck, as you saw me doing earlier against the Black Prince. So, this T-34-85 is on half health. We're going to aim for him. And now this is why you always take the clutch shots. We weren't even aimed, but the thing is that what's the harm in taking the clutch shot? We fired completely clutch there. RNG Jesus just descended and blessed me. But you've got to be in it to win it. So now we're aiming for where we last spotted this Panzer, but he's not there. I'm advancing so I can get shots on the Lurve, and here you can see just how close we have to get to him before we're able to shoot him. Great, he's at the perfect limit of our gun arc. I fire clutch, the shell misses, but the aiming time is only just getting there now when we've reloaded, and that's what I found in the FV304. So it's a shame that we were unable to kill that Lurve. But we're just trying to whittle down the enemy here. So we fire another one clutch.
Critical hit.
Hits the enemy perfectly. You've got to be in it to win it. Literally do take those clutch shots in the FV304, and by the time the tank is fully aimed, you've got another one in the gun,
They're knocked
ready to
out.
take the enemy tank out. Maybe that's not the optimal way of doing things. Maybe some super skilled artillery player is going to tell me in the comments below that I'm doing it wrong. It seems to be working out for me in this tank. I'm not that's not a good tactic in every tank, but in this tank it's a fairly good tactic in my opinion. Oh no, nightmare, we couldn't get the enemy artillery. But that was a huge game in the FV304. Let's take a look at some post-game stats. So that game was a mastery badge. I was very happy to pick up the mastery badge in this tank because I'm getting fairly close to having the tier 7 British artillery, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be keeping this. We're able to do the most damage on our team, doing 50% more than the next guy. We're also able to pick up 4 kills, and we also got the top experience. It was a rather huge game where we fired 38 shells, hit 23, of which 8 was damaged by HE, and 22 were penetrations. 3,400 damage is a rather big game for this tank in my opinion. I'm sure other people will have done better in it, but that's the best that I've been able to do. So we fired just shy of 10,000 credits of ammunition, netting us a 43,000 credit profit. Now, one thing I will say is that I'm not the best artillery player, and I've only been able to do about 1,000 to 1,200 average damage in this tank per game. I'm sure that there are other players who are really good in this tank and the artillery in general, but I think that it's a hell of a lot of fun. The fact that you're so fast to relocate with its incredible top speed means that you're able to use its very troll gun arc to much greater effect than the Bishop could. Now, whereas the Bishop is a great tank for those kind of very strange games where you can just sit in one place and dominate the whole map, the FV304 has the mobility to be able to use that howitzer to much greater effect. Even though the FV304 effectively has the same gun that is mounted on the tier 5 British artillery, using this gun one tier higher at tier 6, it's still fairly effective. Now, it can be very frustrating if you don't get the games where the enemies are happy to sort of stay still, and you get the kind of games where you get IS-3 platoons just rolling through your team and you're completely unable to stop them, then that's where this tank can be frustrating. And I would far rather, for example, be in a Hummel. At least in a Hummel, I'm going to have the alpha damage to really start to hurt those IS-3s as they make their advance. There might be a lot more RNG in the accuracy where the shell goes, but when I hit them, at least it's going to do some damage. However, where the FV304 really performs is those kind of miracle shots that you have on the engine decks and on firing at medium tanks, and importantly, open top tanks. Tanks such as the Hellcat are almost a 1 or a 2 hit for this tank, and considering its rate of fire, you can do some significant damage to them very quickly. Also, a lot of the French tanks, which are very lightly armored, take a huge amount of damage from the FV304, so do take advantage of that. All in all, I think this is a really fun tank. I don't really enjoy artillery myself, but at least I have had some fun in this tank. Anyway guys, I hope this video has been useful to you, or you've at least enjoyed it. If you have, please consider rating it down below. And tell me what you think about the FV304 in the comments. What do you think about the caliber of the gun? Do you think it's very annoying when you're having to engage really highly armored targets that are ripping through your team? Do you just feel completely useless? And would you rather be in a different tank with a higher caliber gun? Or do you just love the speed and the trolly nature of this tank, able to relocate really quickly and put the pain on enemies? Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.